Um, all right, so we continue. So here we have our, say, second part, which is the introduction to the tape. And the tape is 526B, and it's in fact a continuation of, say, the previous one we listened to. And so it's still for what I say is like this still for practitioners, for tape group leaders, to for you, and that's why I love to listen to it with you later on. But first, I want to start off with something, say, in a certain sense, new. So I don't know if you heard the talk, but it was an interesting talk where there's more response than ever in the room where Joel is giving the teaching. And so what happens then is Joel brings in an idea. So one of them was the second coming of Christ, and the other one is something that I need your help with. He puts it in a great way. He actually brings up the idea of a person that you might despise, like that would be the word, despise, like somebody that's been bothering you in a great, amazing sense. Um, yeah, so if that person wasn't there, everything would be better, some kind of thing. Now, this is a healing meeting, this is a healing group meeting, and it's not about putting your putting your stuff out there. No, it's more like we're going to use this as a healing moment for ourselves, just to be honest about it, just to be, yeah, honest about it in the sense, who are you despising? Simple as that. Or is there somebody coming up in your mind? So you can write it down or you can text it to me through the chat. And um, yeah, then I'll write it on the whiteboard. So I'm going to open up a whiteboard. So I open up the whiteboard. You'll see. So you have an opportunity to um, you have an opportunity to fill in um, words, and so I already prepared it. You'll see. So it's like you never know. There might be someone just that you think is doing that to you, that you think like, well, if that person wasn't there, everything would be a lot easier. So the word is despise. In case you don't know what it means, here's one. To feel, this is from the Cambridge Dictionary, despise. To feel a strong dislike for someone or something because you think that that person is or thing is bad or has no value. Okay, so I'm going to write down the texts that are coming in just because they show up. So this is one. So you might have somebody, who knows? And it's not about that we put this out there or make it public to use against anyone. Not at all. This is just like your chance to get it out there and say, let it go for healing forever. Yes. Who do you despise? For just a moment. Just share. And just like genuinely hate, but a little bit more than that. Okay. So this is it. Thank you so much for your input here. It's really great. Really great to just put it out there. Now, Yeah, I opened a Pandora box. I'm gonna close it now too. Uh, okay, so that was that. So now the beautiful thing that happened today, while say listening to the tape, and you might say come to that in a moment too by listening to it. It's like imagine this person, imagine this person walking into your um, walking into your practitioner practice, asking you for healing. Would you do it? See, this is the thing. This is why I shared this. It was the idea of like you cannot afford to despise a person. You cannot afford it with your consciousness as you have it now. You can't afford it. And Joel gives this beautiful example of Hitler. He said, "Yeah, people always ask me why I don't hate Hitler," and then he says, like, "Well, he might show up in my practice one day." So, and then it's like I would be totally loving to him too. It doesn't matter. And of course, it was just post-war, quite close, 63. But it's like this: you cannot afford to hate or to despise. You can't afford it. You cannot do that in the sense of recognizing your responsibility. Of course, it can sneak in, and you can say, think for a moment that this is your way out. Like if that person wouldn't be there or would at least shut up, then I would be fine. But this is really like happiness on your terms. Anyway, so that was something that I loved to share, because it's like the beauty of it is in the letting go and being open, seeing that the roles can change continuously, and suddenly this one guy that you despised actually is going to be the one that saves you. Something like that. It's like if you keep projecting all your grudges on this person, then it will not change. Well, in the light of the second coming, like this is what we cannot afford ourselves to do anymore. So we have to let go of it. We have to say, discover that it's here happening. It's happening in us. You know, it's like it starts with you and not anywhere else. Anyway, so this was something I love to share this way. That's why I bring it up. If you think there are forces outside of you, then that is a reality to you. If you think that there are other people that can attack you, then that is your reality. If you think that if everything would be different outside of you, then you could be happy, then you're still looking for that outside yourself. And that's not the place where it can be found. So in this healing talk, we actually recognize it the other way around. It's like it's all happening here in you, and it's, say, the second coming is you recognizing the Christ in your brother. So this is the beauty. So you could say, like Joe explains this, so I don't have to put that much time into that. So because he does it really beautiful. He says the first coming of Christ is your recognition of the Christ in you, having experiences of light and love. Now, this is not an exclusive special gift to you. No, it is one in which you start to recognize it everywhere. So it's in your brother. It's in the one that you despised before. It's in the one that, because literally there is only one of us. So there's only one mind, one consciousness, and which is Christ consciousness. So everything that has to do then with the duality, with thinking two powers, the power outside of you and the power in you that are fighting, that are, say, in conflict, that are, it's all part of the, say, human dream of the human frame of reference and nothing else. So that makes it beautiful as the focus is shifting, so to speak, from receiving this for yourself, yes, absolutely, and then also recognizing it in everyone and seeing that it actually is the truth of you. Like if you can allow that to occur to you, you start to see it everywhere, and you get it confirmed too. That is the beauty. So it's like, it's not just you see it right and it looks really beautiful. No, it's like you actually get the confirmation, because the thing that happens with joining is a moment of light, is a moment of joy, is happiness, is no separation, is feeling that you're one with each other. You know, having a vivid experience of that. So that is the beauty of it, and I love it, the way that Joel shares it too. We're going to listen to that. So I'm
Now, following up this spiritual consciousness idea, let us see what it is that constitutes spiritual consciousness. We started with saying that God constitutes individual consciousness. But now you must remember that superimposed upon that consciousness is the human mentality, the human intellect, which has accepted two powers, two laws, two selves, myself and yourself. Oh, it's gone further than that. It's even said that some of us are English and some are Americans and some are Africans. The human mind has built up a tremendous thing, all of which hides the God consciousness which is mine. Therefore, as a human, I have no access to God consciousness at all. And it is for this reason that as a human, anything can happen to me, and most things do. Sin, disease, false appetite, poverty, anything happens to this race. Wars, slavery, imposition, injustice. Everything happens to the human race. Why? Because it has no access to the divine consciousness, which all of the time is the consciousness of mankind. Therefore, what is this spiritual consciousness which is the healer? Well, it is my consciousness, in the degree that I have become enlightened to the errors of the human mind. In other words, in the degree that I come to know that there is not God and man, that God is manifested as man, as you will learn in the book The Infinite Way. As I begin to know that I and the Father are one and I am that one, as I begin to know that since I and the Father are one, all that the Father hath is mine, I am building myself. I am really dying to all that constitutes human belief and being reborn in my original consciousness. Now, just think what the human believes. Where is your supply? And what is your supply? Now just think of what Christ consciousness knows. I am the bread, the meat, the wine, and the water. I have meat the world knows not of. I have hidden manna. Well, in that 1 second, I have died to that part of humanhood which believes that I must earn a living, fight for a living, struggle for a living, inherit a living, steal for a living. All of that degree of humanhood has left me. And all of a sudden, I'm at rest in the consciousness that says, I have meat the world knows not of. I have meat the world knows not of. I have hidden manna. I have the spiritual bread, meat, wine, and water. I have even the power of resurrection within me. Just think of not having to go to God for these things. Just think of not having to go to man for these things. But of awakening to the realization that I, in my I-ness, I embody them all. Do you not see that I have died to that part of humanness, and I have been reborn into some measure of spiritual consciousness? All right? In my humanhood, I believe in two powers, the power of health and the power of sickness. But when I grasp the principle of one power, I've died to another part of my humanness. And I don't even need God now to get me my health, since there's no power of ill health, no law of ill health. Do you not see that in some measure I have died to my humanhood and been reborn into my spiritual consciousness? Well, in humanhood, I have been taught that good people get rewards and bad people get punishments. And therefore, when people come around with sins and diseases and poverties, my natural inclination is to believe, oh, well, you're getting punished. You're getting what's coming to you. But just imagine that in a moment, when I realize that God neither punishes nor rewards, God neither gives nor withholds, look at how I look at you. And in this minute, I have died to that measure of humanness. I have been reborn into some measure of the spiritual consciousness that does not judge, criticize, condemn. All of which the Master taught was Christ consciousness. Do you see that? In my humanhood, my enemies always deserve what they get. But I cannot be a practitioner or a teacher in that consciousness. I cannot. I have to be constantly realizing the spiritual identity of them and the fact that the errors that make them my enemies are this, all tied up in this mortal illusion, this belief in two powers. I have probably told you before that during the war I couldn't arouse this great hate for Hitler that so many people were feeling. And people would come to me and say, I don't understand it. With your Jewish background and ancestry, I think you'd hate him more than anybody in the world. And I say, well, heavens, what am I going to do if he phones me tomorrow and says that he's sick and wants me to give him a treatment? I've got to say you're spiritual. Well, I might as well start right now. Well, it was the same way. They tried to tell me that the right work for a practitioner was to know mentally each day that those who need me will be led to me. And I said, how can I do that? And then after they come to me, say you're spiritual. Why don't I start right out in the morning with everybody is spiritual and nobody needs me? And I did that and everybody came to me. You see, to hold a human judgment is human consciousness. And there's no healing in it. Therefore, only as human consciousness is overcome, human qualities, human judgments, human beliefs, human powers, am I reborn into the spiritual consciousness, which when you reach out for help, that's what you're touching. You're not touching anybody that's criticizing, judging, or condemning you. You're not even touching a consciousness that believes you're sick. You're not touching a consciousness that believes there are two powers. Therefore, you are touching the divine consciousness, which is closer to you than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. So it is that you cannot be a teacher or practitioner in this message and yet go on living according to human standards because you'd only be paying lip service to these principles. And that would not be a consciousness. I know. You have to actually develop the consciousness that does not fight evil, that does not judge it, that does not seek to punish it. You have to actually develop that consciousness that recognizes that not only I and my Father are one, but that I and you are that same one, because there's only one I, one selfhood. But saying those words is lip service until you have come into some measure of realization. Now, I don't mean that any one of us has fully attained. Don't think that I'm advertising myself. I don't mean that any one of us has fully attained. I only mean this is the goal, and in proportion as we attain this goal, in that proportion are we teachers and practitioners. Even though we haven't at any time reached the full measure of manhood in Christ Jesus. Whether we ever will on this plane or not, I don't know. But to me, that's not too important. The important thing to me is that each day that I live up to as much as I can understand and realize today. Not to make any pretensions that I've gone beyond that. Not to assume a consciousness I haven't attained. I remember one time when I was first reader at Christian Science Church. 5 minutes before I was to go on the platform, I developed a cold. And all of a sudden, my nose and eyes began pouring forth water. And my second reader said, "Shall I get a substitute for you?" I said, "No, I'm the first reader. I'm going on the platform." "That way?" "Yeah, I'm going that way." And I went that way, but I went with two handkerchiefs this way. And I turned the pages this way. Well, of course, not only the audience, the congregation was shocked, but I could see the board of directors over there just waiting for it to be over. 50 minutes went by. That continued. And in the 50th minute, the whole thing cleared as rapidly as it came. There wasn't a sign or trace. I put the handkerchiefs away, and I was fine. Well, then, what a wonderful demonstration you made. What do you mean, a wonderful demonstration? There were 240 of you scientists sitting out here giving me treatment. Don't you believe in them? Well, that's what I was counting on. I was going to get all these free treatments, get a healing. And I did. I did. Well, now, wouldn't it be foolish to claim that I didn't have a cold? Wouldn't it be foolish to try to hide that I had a cold? Well, what's the use of all that? I haven't made any claims anywhere that Joel has attained his full Christhood. Therefore, I don't have to show forth any perfection. I'm happy indeed if you only see the measure of spiritual attainment that Joel has received, and be grateful for that, and then watch the rest as it unfolds, or whatever is to come. And so it is. I never ask spiritual perfection of our students. Heaven forbid that I should expect it of knowing that I myself haven't attained it. But I'm so grateful with every sign that they give me that they are spiritually progressing. In other words, they are dying daily. How long should that dying go on? It doesn't say in the Bible. It doesn't say. It just says daily. Well, daily could go on forever. And maybe there is a dying daily forever, because maybe we never do attain the fullness, because if we did, it seems to me we'd be God Almighty. It's only in the perfection that we, in the degree that we haven't attained, that we're not fully God. So let us not worry about how far we are from the full stature of manhood in Christ Jesus. Let us be grateful that the message has given us some measure of spiritual light and grace, and that we are some degree further along the path of dying daily and being reborn. And let's keep it up each day, so that each day we die to some human belief, or some measure of some human belief, and each day be reborn to some activity of spiritual awareness. Because you may be assured of this: the degree of spiritual consciousness that I have attained is omnipresence. And it is where you are. Therefore, you need do nothing further than just lift up your eyes, and I am with you. That's all. It isn't my person. It isn't my knowledge. It's the degree to which I have died to humanhood and been reborn to spirituality, and is that degree that is producing the healings for you. And perhaps if it doesn't produce 100%, it may be that I haven't attained the 100% that would be necessary. Now, in this transition that is about to take place in the infinite way, you are going to be led to a revelation which you may or may not be able to accept. If you are not able to accept it, let me say to you, as a student of the infinite way, don't throw it aside and say it's wrong, because you can't see through my eyes. You can't see through my vision. On the other hand, don't accept it because I give it to you. Because I have never been one to encourage blind faith. I don't believe in blind faith. And it is always my hope that when a principle is presented in the message of the infinite way, that the students will eventually come to the realization of that principle. Not the acceptance of it because it says so in the infinite way, not because Joel says it, but if you don't realize it, if you can't accept it, don't look upon it as wrong, because I'll tell you in advance, there is nothing wrong in the message of the infinite way. Not a thing. Whether or not you can accept it all has nothing to do with it. It is all right because it all came from revelation, and it is all proving itself. If not in your experience, in someone else's experience. Sometimes not even in my experience, but in someone else's experience. The point is this: we are entering the period on earth which is known scripturally as the second coming of the Christ. Now, the first coming of the Christ is the coming of the Christ to individual consciousness. Whether Moses receives it, or Elijah, or Isaiah, or Jesus, or John, or Paul, or Buddha, or Lao Tzu, Nanak, it makes no difference. Bodhisattva. Whenever an individual receives the Christ, this is the first coming of Christ to earth. The second coming of Christ to earth is when Christ, spiritual consciousness, will be the consciousness of all mankind, universally. And that is about to take place. When the new generations will not have to be taught metaphysics, they will not have to be taught mysticism or religion. They will be born into it. You see, up to now, religion has been on an individual scale. We have taught individuals religion with the hope of bringing them to spirituality. But then there's been a next generation born. And then they had to be taught, because they were born into the same old belief in two powers. And then they were brought up to some measure of understanding, and they died, and the next generation was born, and they had to be taught. But that's going to be ended now. The second coming of the Christ means that as we establish Christ consciousness within ourselves, we are establishing it for the world. Not necessarily all of the people who are now living in this world, because they are too adamant, they will die out. But it will be the consciousness into which the next generation will be born. The consciousness that the 10 righteous men on earth are now evolving will be the consciousness into which the new generation will be born. The new generation will not be born into an atmosphere of racial, religious, color bigotry and bias. The new generation will not be born into a belief in two powers. I don't necessarily mean the children that are going to be born tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. I'm merely saying that Christ consciousness is now evolving on earth. And that as it continues to evolve, the new generation will be born into that consciousness. This second coming of the Christ means the universal coming of the Christ as the consciousness of mankind. In other words, what we, through study and meditation, are developing, they will be born into. You can see examples of that in another way. The degree of education, culture, refinement, art of your parents is what you were born into. And, on the other hand, the lack of that others were born into, represents the lack. And so we have really all differing degrees of consciousness on earth, from the very illiterate and the very uncivilized up to the very literate and the very civilized. All depending what consciousness you were born into. Sometimes through parents or grandparents, sometimes through your own development. Well, so it'll be. When children are born into the age that has been given the revelation of God as individual consciousness, of one power, of not condemning, that is the consciousness into which they will be born.